Hello and welcome. You're watching Coronavirus Facts versus Myths. I'm Gargi Rawat. First, let's get you the latest data. In India, recorded 26,115 fresh COVID cases. That's 13.6% lower than yesterday's figures. The new infections took the country's total case load to over 22.9 crore. 252 deaths in the last 24 hours pushed the death count to 4,45,385. India's active caseload is currently at a 6-month low. Now, if we talk about vaccinations, over 96.46 lakh vaccine doses were administered in the last 24 hours, and in total 81.9 crore vaccine jabs have been given. Now, the first topic we're discussing on the show is about mucormycosis or black fungus. At Delhi Sir Ganga Ram Hospital, in a recent operation, a team of doctors saved the life of a 34-year-old patient by performing a surgery to remove a kidney as well as a portion of his left lung, both of which they said were infected with mucormycosis, a complication found in several patients who recovered from coronavirus, commonly known as black fungus. Mucormycosis is a very rare infection and is more commonly found among people with lowered immunity due to issues such as COVID and diabetes, etc. Now, in fact, the prevalence of mucormycosis in India was 70 times more than it was globally. This even without the effects of the second wave of COVID, according to a study that was published in March this year. Well, to talk more about this, we're joined by Dr. Ujjwal Parakh, Senior Consultant, Department of Chest Medicine, Sir Ganga Ram Hospital, who was involved with that operation, and Dr. Shashank Joshi, member of the COVID Task Force, Maharashtra, also joining us. Dr. Parakh, first, tell us about this patient and how did his case of mucormycosis get so bad, and considering, we hadn't been hearing of cases for a while now.
See, this patient was recovering from COVID, and then he again started worsening. And at that time, he started having high-grade fever, breathlessness, and he was spitting blood in his sputum. So at that time, he came to our hospital. And when we investigated this patient, we found that his lung was bad. Left-sided lung was badly infected by the pneumonia, and which we investigated to found out to be mucor, because of mucor. And then we were planning for a surgery. Before surgery, when we screened the patient for other areas, we found that his sinuses were also involved, left-sided sinuses. His left lung was badly involved, and his right kidney was very swollen, and around that kidney, there was a lot of tissue which was showing like a pus. So he had a multi-organ involvement because of mucor. And this was all because he was recovering from COVID, received, his immunity was low, he had diabetes also. And in treatment for COVID, he had received steroids. So this patient came with 3 organs being involved because of mucormycosis, which is not commonly seen.
Right. And doctor, what is the reason that he came so late to you? Was he not aware? Was it ignorance? Was it, did he think he was suffering from, post-COVID symptoms? That's why it was caught so late?
I think so, because he was having severe COVID and he was recovering from that. Initially, he might have thought that his symptoms were because of that only. But when he started again throwing high-grade fever, he again went back to the hospital, from where they found that his left lung was involved. Since he was not improving, that's why he came to our hospital.
And how is he now?
He is quite well. With God's grace, he has improved after going through all the turmoil. Now he's back on his feet, he's recovering well, and hopefully within few weeks to month, and he should be back to his work.
All right. Dr. Joshi, again, coming back to this issue of mucormycosis in India, we saw so many cases. It said we have 70 times more cases than anywhere else in the world. Do we know now what caused so many cases of mucormycosis in the country during this COVID pandemic?
Well, I think, Gargi, as doctor said, even for this patient, if you look, this patient was diabetic, had taken steroids, and his immunity was compromised, which is a perfect trio for actually having a recipe for mucor. And as you rightly said, the old data clearly suggests that unusually high percentage of mucor in the world is seen in India. So it is something which is there. We need to ensure that people who are diabetics, people who take steroids, and people who are post-COVID, they need to be particularly on the alert for the next 100 days. So post-COVID 100 days, we have advised strict vigilance, ensuring that there is appropriate hygiene maintained in the nose, throat, as well as the mouth, and ensure that at the first symptom, immediately go to the doctor. Unfortunately, in this case, they did not take medical attention, and the patient ended up losing his kidney, and he had severe damage to lung and other organs. But it is a treatable condition if detected early, and it's a preventable condition. And currently, if you see, the second wave is almost now on its lowest peak, and Mucor cases across India have come down tremendously. You do get an occasional exception like what we are getting in this case, but this is what we used to see before also. We used to get a case maybe once a month or once in 2 months, and that is the general prevalence of Mucor, which is much higher than what they see in US or Europe. So though there is some indigenous this thing, there is a recipe of steroid, diabetes and COVID, all three as a trio make it more vulnerable for Indians to get susceptible for getting Mucor. But as I said, a strong vigilance is there, and I think across India now, Mucor has been well contained. Almost it has disappeared from most parts of India. Delhi is probably, this case is a one-off exception, and these exceptions will keep coming once in a while. But as I said, that this is salvageable, and we congratulate the Gangaram team for ensuring that his life of the patient was saved.
Right. So, Doctor, again, were other cases reported in other Asian countries with a situation similar to ours? Is it just in India that we saw it having such a severe impact? I remember at the time there was also talk that is it because of the use of industrial oxygen? That was something that was ruled out. It was also, as you said, it's to do with the fact that we have such a high number of people with diabetes.
So possibly it is a India-specific phenomenon, that's very clear. And we definitely have the second highest burden of diabetes on planet Earth. We definitely use a lot of steroids. So judicious of use of steroid, tight control of glucose, and appropriate nasal, throat and mouth hygiene, and ensuring that COVID people take care of themselves, particularly who get moderate and severe COVID and who get hospitalized for a good 100 days after their COVID is over, are some key learnings which we learned from the second wave.
Right. Dr. Parakh, would you like to add something, especially since we are still having cases of COVID while, the cases have come down. However, thousands of cases are emerging every day, and how people need to be careful, especially because if the patient is diabetic?
As rightly being pointed out earlier, we need to be very judicious in using our steroids in these patients. And along with that, we need to control their diabetes very well. So these are two things that we can do whenever a patient of COVID comes to us. And this is what we have to continue doing. See, the mucormycosis has been prevalent in India earlier also, more than anywhere else in the world. And this is particularly to this region of the world. Like there are certain viruses, the funguses, which are more common in the Western countries in America. They are not very common over here. So it's a region-specific disease probably.
All right. And I remember there was talk in the second wave because, again, I think doctors were confounded by the sheer numbers of cases of black fungus or mucormycosis, that whether there was some sort of link to coronavirus. And Dr. Joshi, do we know anything more about that, or was that something that was also ruled out?
So there is some data in the laboratory literature to suggest that both alpha and the delta virus of COVID probably form more syncytia and might have had to do something to do with the lung, which predicted them to get more mucor. That was a hypothesis. There has been very scant literature publication after that. So the cause-effect relationship that COVID was the primary cause of this was not proven. What is consistent, as Dr. Saab said, is diabetes and steroid use, and that went up exponentially, and COVID itself increases the blood sugar, and then steroid use on top of that makes it worse. So therefore, a milieu was constructed and it was conducive for this type of environment.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Parakh. And again, congratulations to the entire team there at Gangaram.
Thank you.
This brings us to the second subject we're discussing on the show today. A study published in the Journal of Clinical Infectious Diseases has found that variants of COVID are getting better at traveling through the air, and people must wear tight-fitting masks and ensure better ventilation in addition to getting vaccinated to help stop the spread of the virus. Now, the team led by researchers at the University of Maryland in the US found that people infected with COVID exhale infectious virus in their breath, and those infected with the alpha variant put 43 to 100 times more virus into the air than people infected with the original strains of the virus. Well, let's go back to Dr. Joshi for more on this. And Doctor, it's just fascinating how much our understanding of COVID has changed since it started, and also it has also evolved into these various variants. Initially, we didn't talk about airborne about the infection carrying going airborne and carrying the infection to other people. But now it seems with the variants, it's becoming more adept at doing this.
Absolutely. We have gone through a full U-turn. If you remember, Gargiji, in February 2020, WHO said don't even wear a mask.
Yes,
and the
I
airborne was being skepticized. And today we clearly know that it's an airborne droplet, and it's very conducive in humid environment. And therefore, wearing an appropriately fitting mask, which is above your nose, and ensuring that it is tightly snug is very crucial. In fact, we have advocated double masking. Some people find it difficult. I'm myself an asthmatic, so I find it sometimes difficult to wear double mask, but that's the way to go. And this study from University of Maryland demonstrates that COVID virus, if you have an ill-fitting mask, or if the mask has a leak and is not appropriately covered, it gets transmitted very fast. So remember, these exhaled aerosols which they are talking about is nothing but airborne droplets. And right now also, if you see, the current COVID second wave is lingering around humid areas on coastal belts, predominantly from Kerala to Maharashtra. And you need to understand that humidity, airborne droplet, poorly ventilated surroundings, enclosed environments are recipes for this transmission. And this is what we understood. So it is not just airborne droplet, but it is the poorly ventilated spaces. And that's why the circulating air, opening the windows, having the fan on is much more important. If you are having an air conditioner on, then you need to ensure that you have a HEPA filter there or an exhaust fan put up there. These are equally important. But despite of vaccination, see what was important in this study, Gargiji, was that despite of vaccination and 2 vaccines also, we still need to continue masking because the variants can travel very fast. In fact, we know that the Delta variant is the fastest spreading variant, and it is as contagious as chickenpox. And it has basically that R0 which goes up right up to almost 10 or 11, while the conventional old Wuhan strain was somewhere around 3.5. So obviously, when we have a faster transmissible strains like the Delta or the Alpha strains, and it is traveling mainly from the airborne route, ensuring that we wear tightly fitting masks or double masks are very important. Also, many people wear cloth masks. So cloth mask can still filter the virus and you can still get it. So above a cloth mask, everybody cannot afford a N95 mask. So we suggest then to buy a simple 2 rupee 3-ply mask, surgical mask. And if you wear a cloth mask with a 3-ply surgical mask, it is equally useful. Or if you can afford, then wear a single N95 mask, but ensure that it is completely appropriately fitted and it doesn't slip down or slip down. The biggest challenge which we see with COVID virus transmission today is when we unmask. And we predominantly unmask when we want to eat food. And you have to be very, very careful that when you are eating in a public space or when you are eating in an environment which is claustrophobic or in a closely ventilated space, there is a risk for transmission. And you know that 15-20 minutes of a contact unmasked could lead to transmission. The newer variants which you are talking about, variants of concern like Alpha and Delta, within 3 to 5 minutes the transmission can occur. So obviously this time also has come down. So obviously we need to be cautious and careful. We can't be reckless. And the COVID virus is still in circulation. It is going to remain for some period of time. So we need to ensure that we are cautious. Vaccination will definitely reduce our death rate. It will reduce our hospitalization rate, but still you might get breakthrough infections. So it is very crucial that we maintain COVID appropriate behavior, tightly fitting mask or double mask, and also ensure that we are in a well ventilated room. And whenever we are unmasking,
this ventilation issue, because this again, it's our understanding of COVID has evolved during this last 1.5, 2 years, and initially the focus was so much on sanitizing items, sanitizing surfaces, using a lot of hand sanitizers constantly. But now it has evolved, as you were emphasizing, to this airborne droplets, and how the need for better ventilation is key, especially at a time when we're opening up schools and we're going into the festival season as well.
Absolutely. Ventilation is the key, and having a circulating air all the time is important. If the air is stationary, then obviously the virus will spread and it will stay there. And if the environment in that air is humid, it will stay there further, and therefore the transmission risk goes up. That is why if you see most of our bathrooms or usually our toilets have exhaust fans. Similarly, now most of our places, either we keep our windows open and have our fans on, and if we have air conditioned environments, ensure that we have HEPA filters fitted there or some exhaust fans fitted there, so that the air is constantly circulated. Circulating air definitely will shed off the virus from wherever it is coming through. And whenever we are in a closed space, even now the distancing is important. Yes, fomite transmission or the surface decontamination, that role has come down substantially. What we understood of that before and now, it has substantially come down. It has not been eliminated. There is no data published that fomite transmission can still very, very rarely occur. But the predominant mode is airborne droplet. And that's where we need to be very cautious and careful.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Joshi, for joining us on the program. Thank you. Now look at India's vaccines, and the government has said that India will resume the export into nations of surplus COVID vaccines from next month. The announcement by the Union Health Minister comes ahead of the Prime Minister's visit to the US, where the issue was likely to be raised by President Joe Biden. Remember, ahead at the time when the second wave was starting, India put a stop to any export of vaccines from India, especially Covishield, which had been promised to several poorer countries. Now the Modi government aims to vaccinate all 94.4 crore adults by December in the country. But so far, India has administered only 61% of adult Indians with one dose of the vaccine and only 14% with both. So the question is, where are these excess vaccines to export?
Just days after setting a global record of over 2.5 crore vaccinations in just one day, India has said that it will resume vaccine exports as early as next month. India is known as the vaccine factory of the world and had promised supplies to the WHO program COVAX, which had paid Serum Institute of India $300 million a year ago. But in April, all exports of vaccines were halted because of heavy criticism by states that they were running out of doses. Serum Institute still owes 18 crore doses to the COVAX coalition.
हमारी ज़रूरियात को पूरी करके अधिक प्रोडक्शन करेंगे। ये प्रोडक्शन के तहत हम वैक्सीन मैत्री को भी आगे बढ़ाएंगे। फोर्थ क्वार्टर में वैक्सीन मैत्री के तहत हम दुनिया को भी मदद करेंगे और कोवैक्स में भी हमारी जिम्मेवारी निभाएंगे।
But can India afford to export yet? The vaccination rate needed to vaccinate 60% of the population with both doses is 1.23 crore doses a day. The projected supply for October is 30 crore. According to which a sustainable pace for the month would be 96.7 lakh doses a day. This is below the needed rate of vaccination and raises the question of whether there is any surplus available for export. India's U-turn comes days ahead of the Prime Minister's visit to the US for the Quad Summit. The US may also be pressuring India to resume exports to COVAX, according to a report by Axios.com, which quoted a US administration official as saying, "We have regularly been communicating with the government of India in bilateral and multilateral channels to discuss vaccine supply and inquire about timeline for exports."
Although it may be too soon to resume vaccine exports, diplomatic pressure and contractual obligations may be driving this massive change in policy. With Sudesh Kumar Ram, Meher Pandey for NDTV.